Welcome to The Freight Break with your host, Dan Lindsey, the podcast that cuts through the noise of the trucking industry. We're talking real conversations, real relationships, and real insight that keep the wheels turning.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of The Freight Break, your go-to podcast for valuable and practical content that helps you grow your freight business. I am your host, Dan Lindsey. We've got a fantastic show for you today, but first off, I want to pitch the Broker Carrier Summit and the BCS Freight Network for you. If you are not a member of the BCS Freight Network, you are missing out on the most dynamic, most trusted network in freight. So head on over to bcsfreightnetwork.com and sign up today. Also, a quick reminder, if you have not yet signed up for the next Broker Carrier Summit, we are going to be in Orlando, October 28th to the 30th. This is an event you will not want to miss. It is quickly becoming the best, most profitable, most valuable week in freight. So if you have not signed up yet, go to our website, www.brokercarriersummit.com or bcsfreightnetwork.com and sign up today. TIE TMS, workflows, automation, and integrations built for real freight broker needs. Whether you handle LTL or FTL, TIE delivers data-driven quoting and decision-making so you can win more opportunities and grow faster. Automate tedious tasks, manage carriers, and integrate your tools. No more jumping between apps. Empower your team with the right TMS to boost productivity and win more loads every day. Ready to see TIE in action? Visit tiesoftware.com to schedule your live demo. Today, we're going to be breaking down the topic of carrier reviews. And to do so, I'm going to be bringing my good friend Rob Light with CarrierSource on to talk about what value do they bring to the industry and how can you leverage those reviews to grow your business. Rob, my friend, great to talk to you again.
Yeah, good to be here, Dan.
So you come to us from Chicago. How are things up in Chicago?
It's been hot. It's been steamy. A little humid, but we're always complaining about the weather in Chicago. It's either too cold or too hot, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. I was in Chicago recently. We were both at the same event a couple of weeks ago for the big road tour, and it was 102 degrees in Chicago, and I'm like, where am I?
No, we're never satisfied. You get 4 weeks of 70s all year, and then the rest it's either too cold or too hot.
It's just a roll of the dice.
Yeah.
So Rob, give us some insight for those that don't know who you are and who CarrierSource is in the industry. Give us a quick down and dirty as to what you guys do.
Yeah, so CarrierSource is at its core a review website for trucking companies and freight brokers to build a fair reputation online. Think very much Yelp for the transportation space, right? We stood up the site in November of 2020 with the goal of helping folks build a two-sided reputation in this industry where historically the only reviews that existed were negative reporting, particularly on the carrier side, right? Fast forward 4.5 years, right? We've gathered 75,000 reviews across 40,000 unique brokers and carriers. Our whole goal was to allow, not just carriers to get reviews, but brokers to get reviews as well, right? And to allow carriers to find the right partners that they want to work with based off of reviews from their peers. Every carrier, every broker has a forward-facing profile on our site. It's free to claim your page on CarrierSource. It's free to add some additional information there, services that you offer, contact information. It's also free to gather reviews from your customers, from your brokers, from your carrier partners to build up that reputation. And lastly, right, it's a free to access website, so anybody can come in and do their research on potential partners they want to work with. We have a really large audience of shippers, brokers, carriers who regularly come in to vet those partners.
Well, last time you and I talked, I think you said you had something like 60,000 verified reviews. Is that still the case, or I would imagine it's more now?
Yeah, we're up to right around 75,000 across about 40,000 unique carriers and brokers. So it's growing. We got some exciting plans to grow that in the back half of the year too.
And what is a verified review? Talk to us about your process, because when people talk about reviewing carriers or even reviewing brokers, there are some players in the space, and we all know who they are. We don't have to say it on the show. We all know who they are. And like you said, it's very one-sided. I love the fact that you guys are here to give a fair reputation online to both brokers and carriers. So what is a verified review? What is the process?
Yeah, so the first aspect of our moderation process is we have to verify the reviewer themselves, right? So if you're a broker or a carrier, you got to come in with an MC number. If you're a shipper, we need a business email address, right? And we'll do a little bit of background digging. A human being will actually take a look at the reviewer, try to find them on LinkedIn, ensure that they are who they say they are. And then that same moderator will also take a look at the review itself, right? Both from a quality perspective, because if somebody comes in and says, carrier is good or broker is bad, right? Like that's not useful to anybody. We need to know why. And so we take a quality check as the first step. And then within that review form itself, we ask for proof in the form of a screenshot that you actually worked with the company that you're reviewing, right? So that could be a redacted rate confirmation, a screenshot of the TMS, email correspondence, something that proves that you actually worked with the company that you're reviewing. And if we think anything is sketchy or off, whether that's the reviewer or the review itself, right, we'll reject that review before it ever gets published forward facing.
Well, I'd imagine you guys have tech and automation working in the background to kind of assist you in that. How do you prevent, because this is a big thing, again, with a lot of platforms, not just rating tools, but how do you prevent becoming just another gossip channel, right, for carriers and brokers to complain about each other?
Yeah, we do allow folks to respond to reviews, and that response is public and again forward facing on the profile page. But it's just one response, right? It's there's no back and forth. There's no forum aspect to it. We're not here to
that would be a nightmare.
Yeah, not here to house that, right? I think what we found is that most folks are willing to provide a positive review at the end of the day, right? I haven't looked at the stats recently, but last time I checked, it was more than 80% of our reviews are actually 4 or 5 star reviews. And I think there's a lot to that, right? I think a lot of that is kind of the way we went about gathering reviews early on, right? Especially reaching out to those carrier reps and at brokerages and encouraging them to review their best partners that they work with, right? As a way to kind of promote everybody in the industry, right? Good carriers deserve their flowers and vice versa as well. But I also think too, given the opportunity to kind of take control of your online reputation is a really valuable practice. And so most of the time when you are reaching out to the partners that you work with closely, they're going to leave you a good review. You know what I mean? And it's not a very long review form, right? It takes a few minutes if you're getting through it. If you're sitting down and trying to crank that out. And so, it's really no harm, no foul at the end of the day to just go about asking for that review. And what we've seen is when you do that, you tend to get a much higher, much more positive reputation online.
Well, and that's something that I really love about. So when we first started talking about CarrierSource and what you guys were doing, I identified with that a lot because one of the things we say at the BCS all the time is all the bad actors get all the good press, right? If you ask any carrier any day or any broker any day what their opinion of either whatever the other side is, a broker or a carrier, they're going to parrot, for lack of a better word, the negative things they know or have heard or have experienced about that carrier. So one of the things that I think is really cool, and you pointed it out just now, is that 80% of your reviews are positive. Which means that 80% of the people, at least that are reporting on your platform, but the brokers and carriers they work with, have positive experiences. That's something I think that needs to be really highlighted in the industry as opposed to looked over.
Yeah. And it's a flawed service in and of itself, right? Like things are going to go wrong. Not everything's going to be perfect 100% of the time. Even the best carriers and brokers out there, things are out of their control at the end of the day, right? And that's not to say we don't get plenty of reviews for double brokers, right? Or cargo theft and things of that nature. That it does come through, and we release a double broker list every month of new service providers that have been flagged for double brokering, and we make that very public and forward facing. And if fraud or theft is applied to any review on somebody, right, that's front and center at the top if you end up on that profile page. But I think most folks provide a really sound service, and that gets overlooked, I think, most on the small fleet owner operator side of things, right? A huge majority of owner ops are providing a really strong service. They communicate really well. They show up on time. They're willing to talk to you at any hour of the day they need. And I think that gets a little bit overlooked in an industry where it's just the bad guys who get that publicity.
Right. Well, and the big issue, and you mentioned it just now, is fraud, double brokering, identity theft. So how do you guys fit in? How does CarrierSource fit into the fight against that? And are you seeing an easing or a reduction of these issues over time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we fit as one small piece in the overall vetting process, right? Like we're not a compliance tool at the end of the day. We are a quick check to see if any of your peers have worked with one of these companies, right? Whether that be a broker or a carrier. I think there's plenty of other compliance tools out there that do a much deeper job of vetting on your behalf. But I think it never hurts to take a look at what other folks have to say about working with those companies before you engage in service with them. And so, I don't think we've seen necessarily a reduction of those reviews reporting double brokering or theft or fraud. I think to a certain extent, it's not where we've focused either, right? Like we've always kind of come at it from that perspective.
You've taken a positive spin on it. You really have turned it on its head.
And we always wanted it to be a tool to help brokers and carriers market their business by promoting their online reputation, right? Using the voice of their customers, of their partners to not just talk the talk, but to walk the walk, right? And with proof from those that you work with. So, I think it's just never kind of been the focus of our business.
When you and I talked about this, but that's one of the things that I think is unique about your system and your team is that you guys aren't from trucking. You came from outside the industry, and you bring this fresh perspective, which I think is really refreshing and gives people that opportunity. You mentioned the Yelp for trucking, right? That's really positive way to take that.
Yeah, the core team, our background is really from a company called G2.com, which is the largest software review website. And the way we kind of got pulled into this crazy industry is, had a friend who'd been a broker here in Chicago for 10 plus years at that time. And was like, hey man, G2's raising a lot of money. What exactly do you do? And I explained we collect reviews of software products so buyers have a better understanding of what they're purchasing. And he was like, man, if I had reviews of carriers, my life would be a lot easier. And it stuck with me for a long time. But ultimately, what convinced us to build the site was talking to the other side of the market, right? Talking to the carriers, particularly small fleets and owner operators, and realizing how big of a portion of the market they made up, how little of a voice, frankly, they had in the industry. They had no online presence for the most part, 90% right? No website even. And so we kind of realized that this Yelp, G2, Glassdoor style business model could really benefit both sides of the industry.
Yeah. Again, we've talked about this at length, but that's one of the ways in which we align, the BCS aligns with you guys, is that we try to be an advocate, not just for carriers, but also for anybody in the industry who needs an advocate, right? One of the things that is changing, I think, in the freight industry is it used to be companies and individuals were very suspicious of each other, right? So they didn't want to get together in a room with their competitors, right? Or with carriers didn't want to get in the same room with a broker because they thought they're competing over the same freight and vice versa. I think what we've seen specifically or particularly since post-COVID 2023 is a renewed or revitalized mindset of, you know what, it's a lot easier to work with people in an industry than it is to work against everyone. It's that old saying, the rising tide lifts all boats. So it's really encouraging when we get to come on and have these conversations. What are you seeing in 2025 from the CarrierSource perspective, as well as industry-wide, when it comes to rebuilding broker-carrier relationships and trust?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we've seen more and more requests for kind of transparency into brokers, right? I think that's an area that we need to continue to improve. Like we have a lot of carrier reviews. Broker reviews have always been a little bit harder for us to gather. It's something that I think we can focus on a little bit better.
Reviews of brokers?
Reviews of brokers, yes. Right. And so I think historically there's been more transparency. I say transparency lightly there, but there's been more insight into reporting on carriers versus reporting on brokers. And so I think that's something that we can kind of focus on and hope to grow in the back half of this year, is the reviews from carriers on broker partners that they work with.
Do you think, what's the hesitancy of carrier? I would think that the carriers would be eager to review their brokers, especially if they're having positive experiences.
I think there's a few aspects to that. I think we found it was easier to get reviews on carriers because brokers use so many different carriers. I think they're also a little easier to reach. They're sitting at their desk all day, right, on their computer. Whereas, especially owner-operators, right, they work with a smaller pool of partners, and they're in their truck, right? Like, it's hard for them to get some downtime to actually submit that review. So I think that inevitably leads to it's a little more challenging to gather those reviews from those folks. But I think they're super critical, right? And I think that's something that we can focus on doing a better job of in the back half of the year. And then, I think market conditions are kind of going to be indicative of how some of those relationships go a little bit, right? I don't know if we'll see any sort of uptick in the market in the back half of this year. I think the first half has been way bumpier than people thought it would be, and so who knows? I'm hopeful that a market shift will come, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think we're all I think we're all beyond the point of holding our breath to find out what the market does, but there's still that anticipation, like something has to give at some point. And I think people are looking at this, ELP conversation going on, the non-domiciled CDL conversation that are going on, and I think a lot of people on both sides are hoping that that's going to have a larger impact on the industry. I don't know that it particularly will by itself. I think we're looking at, if something's going to fundamentally change in the market, I think there needs to be a fundamental reason why it changes, right? Like a big event that necessitates that change. So yeah, I'm hopeful over here as well, because a lot of the conversations I have, people are they're frustrated. They're still holding on by their fingernails.
Yeah, it always comes down to I feel like there needs to be a demand catalyst in order for the market to really shift, right? The talk has been on supply for so long, but it's taken a lot longer to flush out capacity than people thought, and maybe the ELP and non-domiciled CDLs does it, but I think without a true demand catalyst, it's tough to see some sort of significant shift.
Yeah. Well, let's shift a little bit toward that as well while we have a few minutes left. Let's talk about the tariff conversation. If we can try and tackle that. Have you seen an impact in the tone of carriers or brokers when they talk about the future of the market, specifically when it comes to like cross-border and tariffs?
I think the most significant thing that we saw was the decrease in shipper searches on CarrierSource. the week of Liberation Day. Like you can see, we have a really interesting chart of volume of searches conducted by shippers, and then it's the week of 3/31, it just goes and just falls off a cliff, and the next week it shoots back up, and the week after that it's even bigger because they're finally looking again, right? But I think it was such a stunning moment that was kind of the biggest impact that we saw in CarrierSource, was just an incredible drop in search volume conducted by shippers on our site.
Well, and that led the Liberation Day week, whatever you want to call it, like that led to a tremendous amount of uncertainty. I got more calls and emails, concerned about the future of not just freight, but the economy in general in that week than I had the entire previous year. Like, people are asking, what's going on? Are we going to have a business in a year? Are we going to have an industry, or what's it going to look like? This is fundamentally different. A lot of what we're seeing in the market right now is kind of a result of that initial uncertainty, right? So hopefully it corrects itself quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yeah, we'll see what kind of deals come through. I saw that was starting to happen today. Who knows? We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, and you made reference to this, so I'm gonna jump in. You guys just recently launched a super cool tool called Shipper's Intent. Talk to us about that, and what's the most exciting aspect about that for you guys?
Yeah, it is a really cool product that we just widely launched a couple weeks back. We, because we're an open and free to access resource, we rank really well in Google for search terms like reefer carriers in Modesto, California, or trucking companies in Cincinnati, Ohio, right? Like we rank first, second, third for almost every localized industry specific search term. And so over the course of the last 4.5 years, CarrierSource's audience has really just boomed through largely organic search traffic. And we now do over 400,000 visitors come into CarrierSource every month. And so a year or so ago, our site traffic was just booming. And we were like, who are all these people coming to CarrierSource? And so we started using a tool to match IP addresses that were visiting our site to companies. And in the first hour that we were running that tool, we had matches from Procter & Gamble, Chevron, Costco, Home Depot, and dozens of mid-sized shippers. And we realized that our site audience was very different than what we anticipated, but super interesting, right? And so what we've done is ultimately we packaged it up into what we call our shipper intent data product, where we can identify when you're, as a broker or carrier who sells direct, we can tell you when your prospects are actively searching for capacity. Same goes for your current customers as well. We can identify where geographically they were looking for capacity, what type of equipment were they looking for, what types of shipments were they looking at, specialized services, the whole thing, right? And then we can, we built out some integrations to push that data directly into systems, whether that's your CRM, collaboration tools to give you real-time alerts through Microsoft Teams or Slack, right? To notify when accounts in your name or accounts you're focused on or current customers are looking at capacity options on CarrierSource.
Yeah, and I can imagine that would be a huge help to both brokers and carriers when trying to source direct freight. That's something I wish I had when I was a broker. It's like, you tell me I can know what my shippers or what my prospects are thinking before I even call them.
Yeah, it's been really cool. We rolled it out almost a year ago now, and really for the first 9 months or so worked very closely with some customers to figure out the right way to deliver that, the value that they get out of it, the right integrations to put in place, best practices, all that, right? And now we're ready to widely distribute that to the world.
All right. Well, thank you very much, my friend. Always great seeing you. And we'll see you in October at the BCS in Orlando. And I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah, it should be fun. Thanks for having me on, Dan.
All right, that wraps up our show for today, everyone. Thank you very much again for joining us. And again, if you have not signed up yet for the Broker Carrier Summit, early bird pricing is still in effect through August 27th. Visit us at www.brokercarriersummit.com/events to sign up today. So until next time, everyone, take care.